Hey, Off-Season After Dark fans, we have reached episode 20, starting back in midsummer. And tonight we have our second Big 12 guest on. You remember in August, July, we had Texas Tech. Today we moved to Utah and have JT Wistrcill here from Locked On Utes. So another one of the more successful teams in that conference. And glad to have you, JT. It's always a pleasure to bring in new teams, new shows that our predominantly SEC fan base can listen to.
Well, appreciate you having me on, Mike. And yeah, it's been fun to see what Utah can do so far this year. Excited to talk with you about them and the program overall, but really excited to be on and greatly appreciate you appealing to me and the rest of the Utah fans by calling us one of the top programs in the Big 12. That was very kind of you, sir.
Absolutely. I mean, in the Pac-12 you were, and then year one in the conference regressed a little, but back on target this year. And it was kind of one of those, last year I didn't see the 4-8 coming. And then I will say this year, I figured you'd be one of the more improved teams in the country just because it seemed so obvious that you wouldn't have a second down year in a row.
Exactly. You look at last year's Utah team, and there's all these one-score games where you lose, and you go, what's the difference between Utah this year and last year? It's the quarterback play. It's better quarterback play. Is it great quarterback play? No, we've seen that a couple times now with Devin Dampier struggling and continuing to get hurt because of the style he plays. But Isaac Wilson and Brandon Rose, whoever it would may be, just not good quarterback play last year. But the rest of the pieces were there. A really good defensive season ago. Second in the Big 12 overall, actually. So really impressive with how much pressure was on them a year ago too. A really good offensive line last year, a physical rushing attack, but you need to upgrade the passing game, and Utah still has a long way to go to upgrade the passing game, but it's better. And that's why you see this Utah team, especially with that better quarterback play, they can go in there against an Arizona State team 2 weeks ago where that's an Arizona State team. They had their backup quarterback in. Utah did not, and it was a 40-10 thumping, and then they turn around and beat Tech, which is just weird all in of itself. Yeah. But Utah got the QB back, and they got the ship right, and now they're rolling.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to put it. You talked about those close games. Remember, they had that month-long stretch last year where you had Arizona State, TCU, Houston, and then the one-pointer against BYU all in a row where it's like you were in every game and just couldn't get over the hump on any of them. So
with a backup quarterback, we played Arizona State closer than Iowa State did by the end of the year. It's just that shows you this Utah football team wasn't that far off. And they're 27th in the country right now. I want to say they got 2 losses, but they're to a Tech team that I think is really good. I know they stumbled, but with a backup quarterback too, I might add. We know Morton's pretty good when healthy. And look, it's hard to win in a rivalry game on the road. Utah was right there. I think this is still one of the better teams in the Big 12.
And I don't know if both of them will be, but you feel like at this point, out of your 2 losses, it's almost certain one of those teams makes the playoffs.
I'd be
one
stunned.
of them probably will.
Yeah, I'd be stunned if Tech's not in there, right? They've been so good, and I know they stumbled against Arizona State, but they've dominated everyone else. They had Hammond in their backup. They still nearly won that game had their defense not allowed them to go on that long, late drive. Arizona State with Sam Leavitt, it feels like it was just a bad recipe for them in Salt Lake City with our physical offensive line. Arizona State, that's not a bad loss for them at all, so I'd be shocked if it wasn't Tech who bounces back and represents this contest. But, hey, BYU keeps finding ways to win, and you got to give them credit for that because that's the end goal at the end of the day. We talk about a lot of things going into these games, the matchups, everything. But at the end of the day, if you can keep finding ways to win, you're going to be sitting in a good spot.
And looking at Tech's schedule, BYU is about the only tough game they have left, for a team that you feel like they can, really challenge them. I mean, that team's looking solid so far. So let's talk a little bit about the improvement to this year. You talked about Devin Dampier, obviously getting him from New Mexico was a massive improvement. He's a very good dual threat QB. And that O-line, I mean, several NFL prospects, Spencer Fano, Caleb Lomu, both will be playing in the NFL. How have they been able to win those games that they were losing last year by 1 possession?
I think it's not even just Devin Dampier. I should also add Jason Beck. And I did not think I thought it was his worst game as offensive coordinator against BYU, but there's other players need to step up and do their jobs as well. But the additions of Devin Dampier and Jason Beck have absolutely transformed this offense and this team. Spencer Fano, in an interview with me over the summer at Big 12 Media Days, said this offense is fun. And he, last year, it was not fun, obviously. Utah could not score. It was painful. It was like the sound of fingernails on a chalkboard. That was the equivalent of watching this offense with your eyes. Like, it was painful to watch this offense, but because of what Devin Dampier and Jason Beck have brought, that physical rushing attack, getting all 5 starters back on the offensive line is rare these days in college football with transfer portal and just guys, eventually going off to the NFL, and it worked out pretty well for Utah, where Fano and Lomu were both in year 2 as collegiate players. They were both sophomores last year. So now they're both likely going to be first-round picks in this upcoming NFL draft, but to have those guys anchoring this offensive line has been massive, and Utah's just been able to bully a lot of teams too. I think the other thing I'll add for Utah as well is defense was still pretty good last year, but they didn't have that pass rusher. John Henry Daly is one of the best sack artists in the country. He's one of the best pass rushers. He's got over 8 sacks now, maybe even 9, I want to say.
They'll list him at 10. They list him at 10 right now.
10 now. Yeah, wow. He's just been an absolute tear off the edge. He's been so much fun. And he should have gotten home a few more times if it wasn't for some BYU holding calls this past weekend. But what he's meant for this team off the edge, too, it's just been some key additions, the fresh energy that Jason Beck has brought to. It's been the biggest thing. And because of Dampier's ability and the creativity that Jason Beck has brought, it's made this Utah offense harder to defend. You got some key returners back defensively. You added a couple transfer guys that have been able to make an impact so far too. And the biggest thing still, though, is just that quarterback spot. That's where Utah's been able to flip what were a lot of those 1-score losses a season ago. Utah's a 2-loss team, but they have throttled some of these other teams. The Arizona State went on the road at UCLA. I know that doesn't look like that wasn't a great win early on. It's looking a little bit better now.
They're playing better. Yeah, they're a lot better
with the Bruins turning around. That was the most accurate thing I said this offseason, was I said it was better to get UCLA at the start of the year than the beginning. I had no idea how well that would age, because apparently Deshaun Foster was just a problem and they've turned it around. But the biggest thing's just been the offense, the creativity. Dampier, one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the sport. I mean, Mike come into this year, like last year, he rushed for 1,000 yards and rushed for 1,000, threw for over 2,500. He was the only quarterback in the country to do that. So just his presence out there has meant everything for this team. It's why they've already matched last year's win total. They exceeded last year's rushing touchdown total by like game 3. It's like the 6th best rushing attack in college football. That offensive line, the philosophy, it's been a game changer for Utah.
And I was surprised, going back to before Beck, I was surprised at how quickly it fell apart for Andy Ludwig.
I know.
He'd been there a decade. We'd heard about him, potentially at Notre Dame or, some other schools that potentially would give him a massive contract, stayed there. And then mid-season last year, it just wasn't working and he got let go. Then you turn around that offseason and identify another candidate who then picks it up and does well, which I think bodes well for Whittingham's ability to identify assistant coaches. And he succeeded for so long, you can't doubt the guy. I mean, in his 21st season as the head coach there, 170 some wins. I mean, there aren't many guys more impressive than him for his tenure there.
He's done a fantastic job. He's coming off what, in my opinion, was one of his roughest outings as the head coach of Utah. I just really didn't like a lot of the decisions he made. I thought it's the type of thing where you only make those decisions and calls because you're playing BYU. You're maybe in your last year, you want to beat them so badly. But overall, removing this last game, he's done a great job. Especially, I think of all these older coaches, think Utah and Oklahoma State entering the new Big 12 were in very similar positions where a lot of people thought that could have been 2 of the top programs. And Oklahoma State has become one of the worst programs just in the country currently right now, while Utah is still, fighting in all these games competitively. And, this year they are a borderline top 25 team week in and week out almost too. So I just marvel at his ability to navigate the transfer portal. He's always said when Utah's added transfers, you will become us, we will not become you. That's kept the culture strong and intact. And he's done a really good job of building this program and guiding it right from the Mountain West days to the Pac-12 days to becoming a program. When you go from a Mountain West program to a team that's capable of beating a USC and an Oregon in conference championships, it's just incredible what he's been able to accomplish. And he's got this team right there. The Utah does not have the best NIL by any stretch of the imagination in the Big 12. Honestly, the 2 teams at the top right now, that'd probably be 1 and 2, right? But they're so well coached. They develop so well. It's allowed this Utah football program to stay right there with a lot of the other top NIL programs in the country.
Let me ask you where, talk about BYU, them being in such close proximity, 40, 50 miles away. What's BYU's NIL situation like compared to Utah?
It's much better. I mean, they have the
Okay.
this is a football podcast. They have the number one basketball player in the country this coming year. AJ Gambonsa is there to play. They have one of the best quarterbacks coming up a couple years from now. You know, Keanu Tanavasa was on Utah's roster. He said that, like, oh, I'm going to stay at Utah. And then things change and he ends up at BYU, and there's reports of NIL being involved. Like, and that, like, there's just a lot of things that point to BYU having stronger NIL resources than Utah. They've landed better recruits here recently. Part of that is Sataki, you know, Jay Hill, their DC's done a fantastic job as well.
And a Weber guy, you know,
Weber State, shout out Weber State, exactly. But no, the NIL part of this is massive. They clearly have better funds. They're landing with a much better recruiting classes, players, all of that. Like, BYU isn't really, they're losing very few guys. I think the only guy they lost a player to was a receiver to Miami this last offseason. Utah lost a D tackle to BYU. Like, that just shows you straight up the difference between the two. And as I said, there's been other reasons that D tackle may have gone there, but NIL wasn't nothing. We've heard a lot of different reports. There was even a story that came out this past weekend, Mike, about Caleb Lomu was offered $1.5 million by BYU. That came from the Salt Lake Tribune to go to the Cougars. Utah's not doing that the other way around. No. And they just don't have that type of resources. They have good money and they've done a good job and they help develop their guys, but BYU is in a much better place, you know, with the Latter-day Saint faith and everything being tied in there too. You have very loyal members for that college as well. It's just a large alumni base and everything. And Utah just has not been able to match that yet. And it's what makes it even tougher when you lose 3 in a row to them, is not only can in a lot of cases the players get more money if they go to BYU on an NIL basis, but now they're also beating you. So that's where it becomes really concerning if you're a Utah, that you continue to lose for your rival for now the 3rd straight time in a row.
Yeah, that nobody wants to lose their rival 3 times in a row, but especially when you're in that close proximity, it adds another layer to, you know, the recruiting and everything like that. We've talked quite a bit about the offense, but on defense, you know, they're playing well this year. They were good last year, even with the poor season. But Morgan Scalley's been there a decade. I mean, it's probably about a decade now. I don't know the exact year, but it has to be. He has to be between 8 and 11, I would guess, somewhere. You know, it's been a good 10 years. So what kind of guy, you know, what does he bring to the table, you know, for our viewers out there, you know, the guy who, I mean, pretty much everybody says he's going to be the next head coach.
Yeah, he's the head coach in waiting. It's in his contract, and he deserves to be the next head coach in waiting. He's the type to me. Is he going to be Ryan Day, Lincoln Riley, like succeeds the legendary coach and, you know, elevates them in some ways or keeps them right where they are? I can't say that for certain, but there's no doubt in my mind that he has earned the right to be that next guy in waiting. This Utah defense, year in and year out, as you said, Mike, they have been elite. He's an incredibly aggressive defensive coordinator. He likes to send in the signals to his guys still. Like, he's that level of just hyper energy, get after it. Utah blitzes a lot. Like, they send the house at you frequently. They ask a ton of their corners. They're going to leave him out there and play him in man, but he coaches the secondary. Him and Sharif Shaw, who are 2 of the best defensive back coaches in the country for my money too. They do a great job developing those guys. This is a system and a scheme, like we talked about it. Like, they held ASU and Sam Levitt in check at times. They let Scadaboo get loose last year, but they held that ASU offense in check for some of the drives. They didn't go crazy on them. We saw them. You see some of these games like UCLA. He has a great game plan for Nico to really slow him down. You see the Arizona State game we just mentioned, like, backup quarterback in there, but everyone else is out there for that ASU team, Jordan Tyson, and he doesn't really go off. Even a BYU team, Utah lost his game this last week, and Morgan Scalley's toward the bottom of the blame totem pole. Utah outgained BYU by over 100 yards, so you held them for under 30 too. And so that game was very winnable, but Morgan just does a great job. I love his game plans. I love the way he attacks weaknesses, the pressure. I played offensive line in high school. It would be such a pain in the butt trying to prep for a Morgan Scalley defense that week, because the way he tricks you into who's coming, who's not, and it is very difficult to prepare for. He's a fantastic defensive coordinator, and I'm very excited that Utah has him as their next head coach in waiting. USC a couple years ago wanted him to be their next DC, and that's where Utah had to throw that head coach in waiting clause in there to get him to stay at Utah, and we'll see when eventually he takes over, but I'm excited for the Morgan Scalley era when it gets underway.
Was that when they hired DeAnton Lynn, or was it the one before that when they hired Alex Grinch and it really failed?
I think it was the Lynn one, because actually, like, if Morgan Scalley is in Utah, we're 3-0 against Caleb Williams. There was that crazy game in Salt Lake City where Cam Rising, Dalton Kincaid went crazy regular season. Then we got him in the Pac-12 title game. Then the next year in the Coliseum with Bryson Barnes, a backup quarterback, we still go in there. And Caleb was never bad.
Who's now playing well at Utah State.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So Morgan Scally, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, they shut Caleb down, but he never let Caleb go off. He held him in check, and he did a really good job there. And I think that success really impressed Lincoln Riley. And that's why they wanted Morgan Scally at the time. And thankfully Utah was able to retain him because, as I said, I think he is going to do. I think Utah is going to be just fine when Kyle Whittingham moves on. Do I know that for certain? No, but I think Morgan's going to be ready. And I know for a fact the culture of that physical defense will stay in place, which should excite all Utah fans.
And they're the type of program with what Whittingham's built up. I don't always say, you should hire an internal guy, but for them, that continuity candidate might be the right decision to keep the culture going. Everybody, knows the identity of the program. He's connected with, campus, city, boosters, etc. And just that continuity might be a good thing for them.
When you're not in Ohio State, a Michigan, some of these other places, and I know Michigan did the internal guy as well, though it's not working out so great so far. You have the NIL, in my opinion, to be able to overcome and move on from, this culture failed. Let's fire him. We'll pay the buyout. We'll recover quickly. We'll be just fine.
Sherrone Moore doesn't get a Underwood without NIL.
No,
in
exactly.
The situation they were in.
1000%. I don't think Utah's in that situation where you can afford, if you have the wrong head coaching hire and a bad culture fit, I don't think you can just, we'll flip that around in a year because we have crazy NIL research. No, I think it takes a few years to recover from that. And if you change the culture, it's a risk, Mike.
And what you're talking about, with the financial situation they're in that, setup, the bad side of that is you get into a Virginia Tech situation where you have multiple head coaches that fail and you can't get talent on the roster. That's where a school in that relative financial situation can make poor decisions.
Mm-hmm, absolutely can. And if you're Utah, just when you have such a good thing going, and I know some Utah fans are like, we've been down a couple of years. We broke through 1 Pac-12 titles. The year after that, you were 8-4. Your 4 losses were only to good teams. We beat a USC team by surprise. Outside of that, we beat Florida in the season opener, by the way. That was Billy Napier's second year. They came out to Salt Lake City, got absolutely thumped in that game.
Yep,
so
I remember that.
Won some games you shouldn't with a backup quarterback. You lose to, Oregon, Washington, and you play Washington closing that game. That really wasn't that bad of a year. Now, the year after that one, when Cam got hurt again, that was a down year. But this year, Utah looks every bit like an 8-4, 9-3 team, maybe 10-2. They're probably going to be favored in every game they have left on their schedule because even Cincinnati has to come to Utah. And for the most part, take out last year, for the most part, it takes a pretty dang special team to go into Salt Lake City and win. I don't just feel that way about Cincinnati yet. But Utah also has some more quarterback stuff, so we'll wait and see how it happens. But I feel like it's best to keep the culture in place with Morgan Scally, and I think he's going to do a good job.
And our viewers know, talking about the coaches and coaches carousel is one of the things, that we do the most here. And I write about it a lot for Mike Farrell Sports. And I'll take my hat off to Scott Satterfield. They might be the most improved power conference team this year. They were, just awful. They're, the first years in the conference. Now they're up near the top and, they're going to have, with the right things going, they could play for that conference title game. Still certainly work to do for them, but it is a situation where, right now, them and BYU are the only undefeated teams in conference play. So
crazy.
I'll give Satterfield credit. Now, that's a good segue to our next. Is that in 2 games?
Yes.
Since he goes out there? Okay. Because if Colorado this week, and is that on the road or at home?
It's at home. Good.
So they're home the next 2.
Good home for the next 2, and then a bye week, before you go out. Before you go out to Baylor, I believe it is for your last 3 games.
I feel like those two. Feel like Utah Baylor have tough games. It seems like they've typically had competitive ones.
They have. Utah's found a way to win, but this is a key stretch for Utah, especially because, Kyle Whittingham in his press conference earlier said Devin Dampier may or may not go on Saturday. He got banged up in the BYU game. Dampier runs constantly, and he just takes a lot of hits. And I love the way that he runs, and I love that they use him in the quarterback run game, but they got to be smarter with him because he keeps getting hurt. And you watch him run in the first half and then watch the second half. He's clearly not the same player. He got hurt. He was hurt against Texas Tech. Watch him against Tech, watch him against ASU. Yes, Tech defense is better, but that's clearly clearly not the same quarterback. So this is an opportunity here. And they actually might rest Devin because Bert Ficklin, he's coming true freshman backup. He does some nice things, but also this should absolutely, I don't see Utah open in this game as 14.5-point favorites like that. I'm sure it's gone down now. I haven't checked since, but I'm sure it's gone down with Dampier's health questions. But this Colorado team, they're terrible against the run. They're the second worst in the Big 12. They allow over 180 yards per game. Utah is the best in the Big 12 running the ball, and they're one of the top 10 in the country. So if I'm Utah, you use a 6 offensive line more than anyone. Doesn't matter how many guys the Buffaloes want to put in the box. Run the dang ball, get the ground game working, and hopefully you really don't even need Devin Dampier this week. Let him rest up because you have that big game against Cincinnati a week after. But I don't think right now, if you made me say like, hey, is Utah going to be in Arlington? I'd probably say no, Mike. But the fact is, BYU, they keep finding ways to win. They're like 11th right now in the country. I personally don't view them as like one of the 15 best teams in college football that is going to be fine against Iowa State, against Texas Tech, against a TCU even, where Hoover could make some plays, right? So in this game, I look at Utah and I'm like, well, there's going to be an opportunity, whether it's BYU or maybe a Tech. Like if you win out, which isn't out of the question, not likely, but not out of the question, you can't slam the door shut on Utah's chances in Arlington. And that should be more than enough for this team to respond, bounce back, and be ready to roll against what should be a very winnable Saturday against the Buffs coming up.
Yeah, you were correct. That spread has dropped to 13.5, which is a very interesting number because now now that you're under 2 touchdowns, that makes it a very interesting bet. So, so that'll be whether you cover or not. That should be a game where your O-line should be good enough to get it done because we talked about them and just Colorado can't stop the run at all. Their defensive front is almost non-existent at this point.
Yeah, they got some pieces that are decent, right? Salters has started to figure it out. I like some of the receivers. They don't run the ball. Fantastic, though. So that should allow this Utah defense to really tee off. Third down is going to get loud in Salt Lake City. That Rice-Eccles Stadium is an incredibly difficult venue to play. And that's why you see an Arizona State go in there. And it's like, what happened? What went wrong? Well, we were fatigued. Altitude sometimes becomes a concern. Won't be a concern as much for Colorado, obviously. But just it's very hard to win in Utah. This is a matchup. And I like the coordinate. This is a coaching. Utah got out coaches last week. I don't think that will be the case against Colorado coming up here, and really should be a get right game for a Utah team that, like we said, they're 27th. They're barely not ranked, and their only 2 losses are to what I view as top 15 teams right now.
You talked about their D-backs, and Colorado throwing so much. Is Nate Ritchie healthy? I saw he had a red flag when I was looking at it earlier. Okay.
Yeah, he's missed the last couple games now. I don't think he'll be back here, and Utah could use him back. Now, Jackson Benny's done a great job filling in for him at safety, but unfortunately, this Utah team just needs better tackling on the field. Teo Johnson is their other safety, and he's a really talented coverage player. Man, he's really struggled in tackling. That was his issue last year. He's a former wide receiver that converted to DB, and I really thought that he was going to fix the tackling issues. But the play where Lander Barton, Utah's really good inside linebacker, who he's going to miss the first half of the Colorado game because of a targeting call the last game. It should have never been targeting because it should have never gotten there. Teo Johnson missed a sack. He missed a key tackle on Bear Bachmeier coming up too. So this Utah defense that struggled with tackling more this year than years past, and no Lander Barton and no Nate Ritchie as well have hurt that over these last few weeks now too.
The other guy for Utah who has impressed me that haven't talked about on D, Elijah Davis is a good defensive back.
Oh, he's really
good. He's a
solid
solid player. Yeah.
You barely hear his name watching games. And unfortunately, he actually got hurt against BYU. We'll see what the injury report is. Based on Witt's comments, which it's always very hard to take Kyle Whittingham, understand what he's saying with the injuries. I feel like he'll be back out there. But he's been really good. The Smith Snowden's been fantastic too. And Blake Cotton probably not on the level of those other guys. But also, like we said, Mike, no team, at least going into last week, no team in the country plays as much man coverage as Utah does. So you're asking a ton of your cornerbacks out there. I really like this Utah DB room, and they held up pretty well against BYU overall. Like we said, Utah did outgain them by 100 yards.
No, I think that's all good points. So let's, we've talked about some of the other teams in the conference. What do you think are, some big storylines for the Big 12 or, things that you expect to happen the rest of the way, through the conference schedule? One of them I'll bring up and ask you. One of the more disappointing power conference teams in the country this year has been Kansas State. We thought they'd be a team who would, if not make it, they would at least compete for a conference, title berth, playing in that game. But losing, week 0 in Ireland and they did just beat TCU, but 4 losses already. We didn't expect that from them. What do you think we'll see from K-State the rest of the year?
I think Kansas State could actually be this year's Kansas, or last year's Kansas, okay. I should say.
Yeah.
When you look at Kansas last year, a lot of expectations coming into the year, like Big 12 title, all kinds of stuff. This was finally going to be your Lance Leipold stayed, right? He turned down the Washington job. Like, you get Daniels back. This is going to boom. And it didn't. And they lost
a lot Neal last year too.
Yeah, and they lost a lot of early games. But what happened late in the year? They became the Big 12 giant slayer. They knocked off Colorado, Iowa State, BYU even. And, they still didn't make a bowl game last year, but they were just this really gritty team that kept finding ways to win. I think Kansas State is going to be this year's version of that because Avery Johnson is a really talented QB. And we see now, and him and Matt Wells took him some time to get going, but we saw it against TCU. Man, that TCU, what a disappointing game that was, dude. The most disappointing team in the Big 12 to me has been Kansas State, but it's been a couple of disappointing teams, right? A Baylor I'd throw in there as well too, who they just lost to TCU this most recent week. Like even week 1, like I just think if you're a Baylor team that's as good as a lot of us thought you were going to be, you beat that Auburn team. Because that Auburn team, I know they're maybe a little better than the record indicates because they're in all these games against SEC teams, but that's a home game. Dave Aranda was the DC on that LSU team that won the national championship. He's the play caller. We thought that defense would improve. They just simply haven't. But going back to Kansas. Going back to Kansas State. It's just been a disappointing year, but I still think they're going to continue to find ways to win games, be a thorn in their side. Them, TCU, Baylor, they won't be in the conference championship picture in my eyes, but they're going to make things interesting in a lot of these games because the Big 12 still has incredible depth in this conference. Those teams were all disappointing. Sawyer Robertson, Josh Hoover, and even like we'll go back to Kansas State, Avery Johnson, like Kansas, Jalen Daniels. Those guys are all capable of being the best quarterback on the field in almost any Big 12 matchup. And when that's the case, you have a chance on a one-game basis. But their inconsistencies, not just those quarterbacks, but those teams as well, are what will hold them back. So that's definitely been a big story is in some ways you have a surprise team like Cincinnati and all those other Big 12 teams who at this point feel like they won't be in the race by the time we get to the last week of the regular season.
We've got another team who poor last year, but could be in the race now. The Houston Cougars, 6-1 right now. Willie Fritz has been ahead. In fact, I tweeted about him, yesterday. Willie's won everywhere he's been. They're sitting at 6-1 now. Their schedule's pretty favorable the rest of the way. Looking at it, they have Arizona State's a tough one they got this weekend. But after that, you have West Virginia, UCF, TCU, Baylor. That's not bad relative to the whole conference. So, and I think for them, it's, we saw Wegman, when he was at Texas A&M, he was pretty good when he was healthy. Mm-hmm. He just was hurt all the time. Now we're seeing him stay healthy, and he's pretty good. So Houston's doing all right, yeah.
They are doing all right. I'll be honest. I don't buy them as a top 5 team in this conference, but I absolutely think they're a top 10 team in this conference. I don't think their schedule has been very difficult overall. Let's not forget they could have easily lost that Oregon State game. They're the only team in the Big 12, right, to go to overtime with the team that ended up eventually firing their head coach, right? They've gotten to play Oklahoma State already. I don't think, look, Arizona, Fafita's fun. Maybe they're in a similar tier to TCU and some of those other teams. I don't view Arizona as that good.
That's their best. And Arizona's their best win.
It's their best win. Exactly. Yeah. So I still need to see more from Houston against the best teams in the conference. But you mentioned it, Mike. They don't see a lot of the best teams in this conference. They got a Utah last year. I'd love to see Houston again this year. I think now that we got our quarterback healthy, our offensive line better. So that to me, Houston is a good team. They are a much improved Big 12 team. They're absolutely a top 10, maybe even a top 8 team in this conference. I don't think they're one of the 5 best. I think they lost a lot on defense last year because they had one of the best defenses in the Big 12, but their DC left. So their defense has gotten a little worse. Connor Wigman's done some good things, but we saw how that went against an elite team like a Texas Tech. So to me, I just want to see more from them because we already said their best win's an Arizona team that I don't think is very good. I don't think they're going to beat Arizona State this weekend. Now, if they do, there's a very real conversation about them maybe sneaking their way into Arlington because of that rest of that schedule and what it is. And a TCU, a Baylor could absolutely get them too. But I like Houston. I think they're a top 8 team in the Big 12, but I don't view them anywhere near even right now what I view a Tech, a BYU, or a Cincinnati. Yeah.
And they're also a team like we were talking about TCU in that realm with Baylor of not being a contender. But with TCU's throwing game, they could beat a team like Houston on the right day where you're just Hoover's going to be slinging it and you're going to put up 45.
Absolutely. Look at the SMU game. That's what happened.
Yeah. Then another one on the opposite end of the standings in in my current state here, we have the West Virginia Mountaineers.
Mm-hmm.
They're 2-5. They're 0-4 in the conference. I didn't think they would be total turnaround in year one and be great. I didn't think they'd be as bad as they are, though. They're just not a good football team in pretty much anyway. We at least expected Rich Rod teams to run the ball well with multiple guys. They're not even doing that.
They're not.
What's going wrong? Yeah. What's going wrong with them?
So many injuries, and I think it's really hard. I know Kirk Cignetti did it at Indiana. That's kind of an outlier. It's really hard to bring in this many new. I think it was 80 is the most ever. It's really hard to bring in that many players and turn things around and flip it, especially in a conference like the Big 12. It's also just call it what it is. They don't have very good quarterback play. That's a massive thing in this conference. Why was Utah didn't have good quarterback play last year, but they had a really good defense. West Virginia's defense is not that level. It's a fine defense, maybe because they did some things against the BYU, but I mean they've gotten steamrolled by some of the best teams in this Big 12. Now they got blown out by Kansas, Utah. So to me, West Virginia, I like Rich Rod. I think eventually it will work there, and sometimes before you get better, it's got to get worse, right? They really tore things down from where they were as a middle tier kind of Big 12 teams. So you tear that down, and then you hope next year that you can bounce back. You got the win against Pitt. That was kind of their Super Bowl this year, so that's still a positive thing that they were able to do. And yeah, it's just going to be a little bit of a rebuild. You need to get better along the offensive line. That has to get better. You have to continue to develop, get the right quarterback in there too. I like some pieces they have along the D-line, but it's just tough in a conference like the Big 12 when you have some teams like a Tech, a BYU, who their NIL is firing on all cylinders, and you're starting a rebuild. Rebuilds aren't going to be kind in college football with what some of the top teams in the Big 12 are doing right now. So long term, I think the Mountaineers get better, but this is not their year. I didn't think it would be a great year for them just because it's hard when you add 80 guys like they have and the injuries, right? Like White getting hurt, the back, that's been a crushing blow to them. So those two things coupled together have just really ended the Mountaineers season before it could even get started.
Yeah, I was going to bring up that exact point of Jaheim White is of all of the Power 4 teams, he might be the most impactful non-quarterback injury anybody's had. Because for how much they run the ball and what a good player he is, that was right when he got hurt. It's like, and I was watching it when they were playing Ohio. It's like, they can't replace him. They will suffer the rest of the season because of that. You just knew it in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Now, talking about a team that's slightly better, but in the same vein as West Virginia, UCF. A team who brings back a former head coach in the offseason to be the current boss. How do you expect the second Scott Frost tenure to go at UCF?
I actually thought
it'll be okay.
I do too. It's funny to me. So many people didn't like the hire there. It's just like, I know he didn't work at Nebraska, but whoever you were going to hire, your hope at UCF is that what he would do, what Scott Frost has already done.
Yes.
Everyone wants to relive the glory days, because then what's funny about that, the people who didn't like the hire, is let's say you hire some new coach and it doesn't go well. All you'd be posting is about, I miss the Scott Frost days. Well, now you get a chance to actually try and relive them with a coach who wants to be there, who's learned his lessons, who's come back now. And rebuilds take time in college football. I think UCF's another place where their NIL probably isn't in the greatest spot too. So it's going to take some time developing the right culture, the right system, getting all those things in place too. They battled Cincinnati hard that first game, right? I think you're just looking for signs in the first year. We talked about the Pitt win for Rich Rod, right? Like signs that, okay, this isn't going to be a disaster. This isn't going to be Deshaun Foster of the Big 12, basically. And I think that Frost has done that already. I like some of the pieces they have there. It's early on too. You still got to win over UNC and Bill Belichick, which pretty much everyone does right now, but it's still nice to get that P4 win in there too. I like UCF. I think the long-term outlook for them will be better. Are they going to be one of the best teams in the Big 12? That's asking a lot. Can they be much better than they've been these last 2 years? I totally think so. I like the Scott Frost hire, and I already think it's showing dividends in how they've been more competitive in some of these games, especially than they were down the stretch last year. Utah's last game was at UCF last year in Orlando. That got out of hand quickly.
Yeah. And like you had mentioned some of the people not liking it. My comment to one of them over this past summer was, man, you people don't shut up about a fake national championship you won.
Exactly.
Why do you not want the guy back that did that? Like, what are we doing here? Yeah. So, I think he was in over his head at Nebraska.
He was.
But everybody since Frank Solich has been over their head at Nebraska. maybe up until Rule now. Like
well, even Rule, right? Everyone's like giving him the Penn State job. I can't. If you fire James Franklin and you bring in Matt Rule, it's like the Scooby-Doo meme where you take off the mask and it's just the same guy. Like, what are we doing? I don't think that makes any sense.
King in the ring taking off his mask and the paint is still there.
Yeah. Exactly. So I still think Nebraska is not in a great spot, and I think that'll be interesting what happens with Penn State, the Rule thing. But yeah, Nebraska is just a tough job.
It is. Yeah.
Coaching in the Big Ten is tough right now because you want to compete with Ohio State, Oregon NIL, Indiana NIL. All of a sudden, good luck. I wouldn't want to do that right now. That's where at first I wanted Utah to end up in the Big Ten because first all the best teams in the Pac-12 were getting there. Now I look back on it and I'm like, well, it'd be nice to be getting that money. But at the end of the day, what are you chasing there? Do you want to be a Minnesota? And you also risk becoming Wisconsin. Like, think about how irrelevant, how irrelevant Wisconsin is coming in the college football landscape because their NIL isn't up to standard of a Michigan and Ohio State. And that can be detrimental to your brand long term.
And I think Fickell, we talked about this a lot yesterday, the last couple of days, but Fickell, everything that's went wrong for him could go wrong. Mm-hmm. Nobody likes him. They can't keep QBs healthy the last 2 years. And they might have just tried to change the, with Alvarez, with Bielema, with Chris, you were run teams, tight ends, I form, using fullbacks. They tried to change the identity maybe too much there for their own good. So
they did. And it doesn't seem like they're going to fire him because that buyout's a lot. And we just talked about Wisconsin in the NIL situation. And if I was Wisconsin too, I wouldn't fire him because I'm like, okay, I know Luke Fickell is a good college football coach. I saw what he did at Cincinnati. It's not working here right now. What are the reasons now we could fix it? Now, I would make him try and go back to the drawing board and say, like, hey, you're trying to do it this way. You need to change your approach. But I trust you to figure it. I trust Wisconsin's chances to figure it out more with Luke Fickell than I do them firing him. $25 million in buyout money. Your roster is already not good. And then you're trying to replace him and turn things around there. I think it would only get worse.
And also a conversation I was having today, there's been a lot of big schools that have already fired a head coach and more that will. If you're Wisconsin, you're down the pecking order for candidates. But the way the market works there, if you wait till next year and do it early mid-season, you bump up to the top there and you might get a way more desirable candidate if you can wait partway at least through next season. So the timing may also be a factor there. And if you want to get your guy right now, it's probably not, you're not going to, nobody wants to sell low, which is what they would be doing now if you're, in the realm of getting a new coach.
Yeah, Penn State and Florida are open. Like, those are going to be the top coordinators. You're going to have to wait. Are you waiting on those guys to see if they lose out on that job? And then what job do they get from there? There are a lot of jobs right now that are more attractive.
Right now, I think Arkansas would be more desirable than Wisconsin. UCLA, I would probably give the nod to Wisconsin, but it's neck and neck. If UCLA would be willing to show me that they're going to financially back you, you have something there. And
if I'm UCLA, I don't know if I'm moving on from what I got right now either, though.
You might promote Tim Skipper. Yeah. A guy who was interim last year at Fresno and did okay. So
he's figured it out. And Virginia Tech's another one too. Virginia Tech, they've talked about with how they've talked about investing, that one could even be better than UCLA. Because you're also in the ACC, which right now I would say top to bottom may be the worst P4 conference, maybe top to bottom. With you look at a Boston College, a Stanford, how some of those teams have done, it's just not the best right now. So I almost like your chances to succeed there to be a Georgia Tech type where you come up out of the radar and you rise up. That's why a lot of us thought UNC could be really good this year because we looked at their schedule and we're like, oh my gosh, they play no one. Like, even if you go to the Big Ten, you're still going to end up with one of a Michigan, Ohio State, a Penn State, like a Oregon. Like, there's just a lot more good teams there. And even the Big 12, like I said, I just feel like there's that tier of teams that make it interesting at the top. Like, it's a more parity-driven conference. And I just don't feel like the ACC is that way right now.
Yeah. Turns out that team is Georgia Tech because they beat Clemson and now they're not good. They're going to, there's a decent chance that they are 11-0 going into Georgia, their last regular season game. And by which time they would have clinched a spot in the conference title game. So
if they're 11-0 going into the Georgia game, like, they're literally in the playoff to me too. Like, you're going to lose to Georgia and then you lose the ACC title game. Like, you're absolutely a lock in there too. And I'm so impressed.
Yeah, at 11-2, you're in the playoffs at 11-2 at that point.
Speaking of head coaching candidates, by the way, I kind of want him to stay there because it's a fun story, but I'd give him all the money at Georgia Tech. I'd give him Brett Key. Thank you. I'm trying to remember the last name. I'd give him all the money.
He's a Georgia Tech alum too. So
money talks. Money talks. We just talked about some of these other guys who have left their alma maters, like Jonathan Smith did, Michigan State, not going well at all right now, but money talks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So let's transition to that topic a little bit. Our obviously the coaching carousels, something we do hear a lot. Do you want to talk Florida or Penn State first?
We can do Penn State first. It's fascinating. I wouldn't have done it, what they did.
I wouldn't have either. I thought they were too rash in doing it. To me, it's one of those where this year's been a disappointment. You're not where you want to be, but my thought process, if you're going to fire a guy like that, you have to have someone lined up who is better. And at this point, you can't know that anyone's better because of how many games he won. Mm-hmm. Like it's tough to do.
He helped to resurrect that program, and they just turned him around and dumped him off, and they think they're so much better, and they can do that. Like, maybe we'll see. You're going to get your good NIL and everything, and I understand it's disappointing, but I also know this: like, when you're knocking on the door, they almost beat Oregon, and I know it gets frustrating to do this over and over again and not lose it. It's more likely you're going to fall back than get better with your next hire, especially because, I mean, like you said, like, where's the home run hire? It was Cignetti was number one on everyone's board. And then Indiana brings the brink trunks out for him, and they make him their guy there. So if you're Penn State, I don't even know where you go right now. I think there's good candidates, like we said. Like, I would love a Key from Georgia Tech, but can you get him out of there? I don't know that.
If I was them or Florida, a guy high on my list would be Eli Drinkwitz. Very good
for
coach.
Sure. Yeah, that's that, and that would be interesting. Like, if he leaves Missouri for them, and Missouri's done pretty well NIL wise so far. So that's another guy where he might be willing to stay. But I like that a lot, especially like a Penn State. I think that's definitely the move I would make for Penn State, is try to go with Eli Drinkwitz. I think he'd be great there. He's just fun. Like, he had his thing on game day. I hit a couple weeks back. Yeah. He's just so funny, man. I think he does a great job. That I agree with that. That'd be one right there too. But then once again, like, would I rather pay $50 million plus for James Franklin's buyout and Eli Drinkwitz, or would I just rather have James Franklin and give him the opportunity to run it back and try to turn things around? I would have just stuck with Franklin. So that's where they're just in a very interesting spot.
Like, if you don't get you don't get Drinkwitz, you don't get Rule. Which do you want Rule right now? Yeah. You might be looking at a guy like Manny Diaz. I don't say that to be derisive of him. He's a good head coach. He is winning games at Duke, which is a really tough place to win at. Was a former Penn State D coordinator. Did you fire James Franklin to hire Manny Diaz? No. Not a chance. No. Like that. You're not.
He had his chance at Miami.
Yeah.
James Franklin did better than him at Penn State than he was doing at Miami. And we've seen how good Cristobal can do at Miami. He's doing pretty dang well. Diaz had his shot forever and was never quite good enough. And you could say that about Franklin, but his first year in the 14 playoff, they were right there. And I just totally disagree with the move to get rid of it. And I agree. Like, I like Manny Diaz. I think he's a solid head coach, but is he going to be the guy to turn Penn State around? I don't think so at all.
No, not at all. To me, I think he gets a Big Ten, maybe an SEC job at schools he's been at before, but for a blue blood job like that, I wouldn't have him as the guy right now.
Like, if Eli Drinkwitz went to Missouri and Missouri wanted to then hire a Manny Diaz, I'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, still a really good coach. Like, you can recoup some value there, because it's still Missouri. Like, it's hard to be. But once again, like we say, it's still Missouri. We used to say it's Indiana. We don't know what Missouri's NIL might be a little better than we're giving them credit for. And maybe they'll be able to retain Drinkwitz too. So I'm very curious what the Penn State would be, but I agree with you, Mike. I think Drinkwitz would be a really good fit for them.
Yeah. To me, he's a heck of a coach, and he's in his third year in a row of doing very well there. And he was good at his 1 year at Appalachian State before going to Mizzou. Now the Gators, I think that the opposite spectrum of Penn State, where we all kind of expected it was going to happen. I didn't know if it would happen after a win like it did.
Yeah, but that's a bad look.
The writing's been on the wall for so long, though. I wrote this in the article, whenever there's the will they or won't they,
I know.
Eventually the will gets you. It eventually happens, and it did.
It did. Honestly, I know it's crazy because Ole Miss is doing well right now. If I'm Florida, I'm trying to get Lane Kiffin. I think he's fantastic. I think he would be a good culture fit for what they want to do there too. Will he leave Ole Miss? Because Ole Miss's NIL has been really good. I don't know that for sure. But the ceiling at Florida to me is higher. So if I
Absolutely.
was Lane, I would definitely consider that. The only thing I'll say is like and this is just a me thing, and I don't know how Lane feels about this because Lane's an interesting guy. Like loyalty is probably something, right? Like Ole Miss has given you this chance. You've succeeded there. It's gone great. You're right on the cusp of being this great contender. Do you just want to all of a sudden leave that? But even though your ceiling's higher in Florida, do you want to leave them? Even though you're going to be really good and continue to be really good? That's an interesting question. But if I'm Florida, to me, it does start with a Lane Kiffin. And with all these openings, you have to be realistic. Like, we do that. Oh, would Nick Saban consider this? Like, no, Nick Saban is not going to consider this. No. He's a star on television every week. Like, he's not coming out of retirement. So who else can you realistically find?
James Franklin could be a guy for Florida.
I would agree with that. I would be shocked if that was the higher though, because I think in their minds, they can do better than James Franklin. And that's one of the big problems in college football right now is there's a lot of programs out there that are going to go, oh, we can do better than James Franklin. For example, I heard a lot of people, this is a different coordinator versus head coach. But a lot of people didn't like the Matt Patricia hire for Ohio State because he wasn't a good head coach with the Detroit Lions. Oh, I don't know. It was almost like he was one of the best D coordinators in the NFL forever with the Patriots. And now he's leading historic defense at Ohio State. I know he's got the players, but he's doing things with them that we haven't seen in a very long time. So that's to me where this is interesting too, is the egos really get in the way with this stuff. Carolina's paying the price for that. It's been reported now that their AD did not want to go with Bill Belichick. He wanted someone else, and the board wanted Belichick, and we're seeing the price for that too. Speaking of that, really quick, Matt Campbell, I don't know if he's a Florida hire, maybe a little bit more in lines of like a Penn State, because I don't think Elko's leaving for Penn State. I know that name's been thrown out.
The one where I could see Matt Campbell going, one we talked about, he'd be a home run for Wisconsin.
He would be. Yes, he's very Wisconsin. I totally agree with that. And
Chris Kleiman would be too. While we're on the topic of guys we talked about.
I think so. I'm actually a little down on Kleiman right now. Maybe he'll turn it around, but I don't love the way he's handled certain things. This year being a big a disappointment as it has. His comments, even like leading into the year, he was just making some excuses. Like I remember in the Ireland game, they asked him about like, what's going on with your offense? Like, well, let's give the defenses some credit. I'm just like, with as disappointing of a year as he's had. I'm a little down on him right now than some of these other guys we're mentioning too. But I'm curious with what Florida's going to do, because this feels like even more so than Penn State. I think Florida has higher potential. Could Penn State be the better job? It absolutely can, because they've been closer. But to me, Florida
you also could. I might say, and I'm stealing this from Brandon Walker, but he said right now Florida's the better job. Penn State was in the semifinals 5 games ago, and then they fire you. That's not where you want to be at right now.
No, it's not at all.
Sense, like the way he worded that is good. Yeah.
Who would you go with for Florida? Who's your guy? Is it Franklin?
Honestly, maybe it's because I'm higher on the guy. If I was both of them, I would attempt to hire Eli Drinkwitz right now.
You go back to him. Is he a Florida guy though?
No, Arkansas.
Yeah, that's the only thing.
Yeah.
That's where it'll be interesting to me is like he's not a culture fit, but I don't know which coaches. Like I think Kenny Dillingham's a fantastic head coach. Yeah. I think a bunch of these teams should consider Kenny Dillingham. That's not a culture fit at all. I don't like that. To me, has the chance to be who was Brian Harsin when he went to Auburn. Like they ran him out of town after 2 years. I'm not saying he was doing a great job, but like he didn't even get a chance. Yeah. Like,
by the way, I'm going to plug Brian Harsin for the Colorado State job. He would be a fantastic hire for them.
Yes, he would be. Yeah, and that's what's funny is there's some people that are like, oh, he didn't work at Auburn. But it's like, yeah, but he crushed it at Boise State. Like, it's the same thing. I love, by the way, Jason Eck is a name to watch for in the future. He is crushing it at New Mexico.
Idaho doing well at New Mexico. Yeah.
He challenged Michigan right away. They went in and thumped the Bruins early. He's not getting the Florida job, but I'm just saying that's a nice, like he's going to only continue to rise up the ranks. I really like the way he runs his program.
Maybe he's an Oklahoma State candidate.
Yeah.
Now it's tough after 1 year. You almost feel like he'd stay at New Mexico at least one more.
Yeah, and they like that. There's some guys like in Texas. I feel like they're going to go with like a Texas or Oklahoma type of hire. Especially
Eric Morris at North Texas. I think
who's the one? Yeah, who's the one at the Texas State coach? What's his name too?
GJ Kinney.
I could see Kinney as well. That's another one I definitely see there. And really quick for the Florida one, I go back. I think Brett Key would be a home run hire for Florida, and I think that's what they need. I think they'll want to take a bigger swing and think they can find a guy and do better. I think Florida thinks they're smarter than everyone, hence why they let go of Dan Mullen earlier than they should have too.
That might be true. Yeah.
Which is another name. I'd be interested if anyone kicks the tires on Dan Mullen again. He did pretty well when he was at the P4 ranks, and he's doing well.
He's another one I've heard chatter for the Virginia Tech job and Arkansas. Both of them would make sense. Like when you were talking about schools thinking they're better than they are, I immediately thought of the Virginia Tech fans, because you hear a lot of them, like the Va Tech fans don't want James Franklin's like, what world are you living in?
Exactly.
If anything, he would say no to you because he'd be getting a bigger job. What planet are you on where you think this guy's not qualified for your job? You haven't been good since Frank Beamer was there.
Exactly. And they are the definition of a program to me. If they don't fix some things, there's a lot of these programs. Wisconsin's one of them right now. You will be casualties of the NIL era. Indiana, Missouri, some of these new powers are emerging. Oregon is back and better than they've been in a while, right? Because of the NIL and the ability they have. And a lot of these schools are going to they'll be like, oh, we used to be this good. We need to keep chasing that. You're not that anymore in the NIL era.
You become a Kentucky where you just keep regressing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's another job. Mark Stoops, I wonder if he's going to keep Kentucky too. That's another one because they're going downwards.
He's one I have a little more sympathy for because he's the best coach they've ever had. They were a nothing bottom feeder. He was winning 8-10 games, at least 8 games for a number of years. Like he raised the bar a ton. I do think it's time for the cycle to end and them to move on probably to John Summerall, who is an alumni, former player there and is a fantastic G5 coach. But
agreed.
Hats off to Stoops, build a statue of him, but hey, see you later.
Yeah, and some guys you get to that point with, right? Like Mac, I know it's been a disaster for UNC. They absolutely had to move on from Mac Brown. It was not good last year. Like people forget that because of how bad it's been this year. Like they should have gone with Matt Campbell, hindsight, like going this year, but like moving on from Mac Brown was absolutely the right decision. They got like blown out by Boston College. That's another one I'm shocked by the way, how bad it's gone for Bill O'Brien.
It shocked me with North Carolina. It's like Max getting old, the game passed him by. Then you hire a 70-year-old. Why?
Exactly. That's what we said. There's that divide. There was that divide in the dysfunction in there too. And that'll be interesting to see for them. Like, is Bill want to continue to try and prove everyone wrong? Does he just punt and admit it's over? But if he does that, like, I don't think there's ever a chance he becomes an NFL coach versus if he sticks it out there and there's so much money tied up in there, maybe he will want to stick it out and fix it out. Maybe then eventually could get up there. So that's an interesting one too. Cause I was actually at that game, their game against TCU, and the energy and the buzz when they scored that first touchdown in the building or in the stadium, electric. And it's like, you see what this could be if it's right and firing on all cylinders. I love that campus. I love
right when that happened. We had Skip Bayless tweeting out, "This is a national championship caliber offense."
Skip Bayless being wrong. What? Never happens, right? Mr. What is it? Manziel will be bigger than LeBron ever was in Cleveland. The coaching carousel is always fascinating.
I have a few coaching questions. These two I always do, and then we're going to do another fun one. So I'll limit this to the Big 12, the conference you focus on. Which coach right now is on the hottest seat?
Ooh, the hottest seat in the Big 12. I'm trying to think. Really, are you going to ask me who the best coach in this conference is? Is the next one going to be or no?
I'm not going to ask. No,
really.
The next one surprises, but this is hottest seat. Yeah.
Okay, I'm for really quick for best. I think Kenny Dillingham's fantastic. I just wanted to say that because I think I'm a huge fan of his. Hottest seat. Yeah, go.
Hold on. While you're answering this is the graphic I showed in the preseason.
I like it.
This is not my list. Mm-hmm. I did write one for every conference. This is not my list, I will say.
You know what? It's Brennan, by the way. He's on the hottest seat still, especially as they start to disappoint. Because it was Gundy, clearly, right? And I think a lot of us thought Gundy was going to get better. Dykes is heating up a little bit, but won that game against Baylor. I think he's okay. Oh, you know what? I'm so sorry.
I think Aranda's heating up too.
I forgot about Dave Aranda. Yeah, Brennan actually, because it's year 2, I think he's okay. I don't know how Dave Aranda keeps his job unless he just goes on a winning streak. I think this was they have such a talented offense. Yeah. You were supposed to
when they won 5 in a row or something.
You were supposed to take charge. Exactly. You were supposed to take charge and write the defense. Dave Aranda has by far the hottest seat in the Big 12 with some of those other guys lurking behind, but it's been a down year for them in a year that they should be among the best teams in the Big 12. I thought they should have been ranked coming into the year. They just missed out on it. And what they do right away, go out and disappoint. So yeah, Dave Aranda to me, hottest seat for sure. I'd be shocked if he is the coach in 26.
Yeah. This list too, like I said, a summer one. If we were doing this list now, Scott Satterfield would be a lot higher.
Would you move Dillingham up?
I mean, I would have had Dillingham top 3. So him winning Campbell would be my top 3.
Yeah.
And this conference has a lot of good coaches too.
They do.
Lance Leipold's a hell of a coach.
Joey
McGuire's a good coach.
Mm-hmm.
Sonny Dykes played for a national title game not that long ago.
Willie Fritz, Sataki, you just mentioned those guys too.
Yep.
All really good options.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good coaches here.
Mm-hmm.
But so we agree that Dave Aranda's on the hottest seat now?
For sure.
Okay.
For sure.
Now, the next question makes some people think, which coach in this conference is the most likely to take a blue blood job somewhere else?
That's Matt Campbell to me. That's probably Matt Campbell. I'd say for that. Blue blood job is interesting though because it's
significantly better job. SEC, Big Ten, like a way better job, whether it's blue blood or not.
And actually, I would still go with Matt Campbell. I think I think that Dillingham's the best coach in this conference. I actually think ASU, they got to give him a GM. He went there. Like I feel like they'll fund him well enough that he stays. Yeah. Maybe I'm wrong. And to me, it'd be Kenny Dillingham. Like if I was a AD somewhere, I'm trying to hire Kenny Dillingham, but it just feels like with all the interest Matt Campbell continues to draw, feels like my number 2 would be Satake though. I think he's done a great job at BYU and everyone loves him. I think he'd be a great fundraiser wherever he goes at too. So that'd be another one that I look at, but I'll go Matt Campbell right now.
Yeah. A guy I'm going to tie this into what you said. We were talking about Florida. I think Jed Fish could be a legit candidate for them. He's a Florida alumni, former assistant coach, winning at Washington. Satake could be a very interesting candidate for Washington if that job would open up. Great point. I think that might be a place you could get him to bounce for.
I agree because the ceiling at Washington, we've seen what that can be, and he's done.
Chris Peterson took him to the playoffs,
and they lost to Michigan this last week, but they got a freshman quarterback there. He's really talented.
Yeah,
he's like a freshman, but they're going to be really good.
Very good. He's like, legit. Yeah.
If he kind of left Arizona maybe a year before they were. His last year of the Pac-12, like they might have been a first-year Big 12 contender had he stayed there. Next year, I don't know if they'll be one of the top 2 teams in the Big 10 because it might just be Oregon and Ohio State NIL-wise every year, but going to be right there. I think I really like Jed Fish. I think he's done a great job with what he builds, and I think that'd be a good hire for Florida. That's another interesting. The fact he's an alumni helps, but that's another one. He's coming a long way from Washington all the way down to the SEC. We've seen how kind the SEC fans have been to Kalen DeBoer so far. By the way, he's only crushing it right now. All I hear about is how these Bama fans want to run him out of town.
With the next game he loses, there will be he's not ready for the SEC. It's going to flip every time they lose. Every
time they lose, and they're funny. They're the definite because it's like, who do you want to hire? And it's like, oh, Nick Saban. It's like, what do you mean, Nick Saban? And then it's funny because they'll be like, well, we want Dan Lanning back. It's like Dan Lanning hasn't won a big game. Like he could, he beat Ohio State last year, but like Indiana this year, the Washington games a couple of years ago, DeBoer beat him twice in 2 big games in there too. And you get steamrolled by Ohio State. Like I love Dan Lanning too.
You have a guy that Nick Saban's last year coaching. This guy made the national title game and Saban didn't.
Exactly. And he has you rolling right now when look at what's going on at LSU. That's another job that could open up, right? Not 100% sure it will, but Kelly's disappointing. And maybe next year, that's like the job in the cycle.
I wonder with Kelly, being a Northern Midwestern guy, I don't think Penn State would hire him because I think too many fans would not like it. You could do a lot worse than him. He wins games everywhere, but I don't see it happening. But if you're Kelly and they offer, I might think about it because you reset the clock again and start a new gig.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of him. I'm with you, Mike. I'm just not a big Brian. Like I'm not. I think there's better hires.
I just don't think for that job he'd be the great hire.
Yeah, like I should say this. Like I don't think he's the best hire. That's where we agree. I'm a little lower on him. I don't like the way he runs his programs. I think it's just the way he acts, he carries himself, some of the stuff. But you are absolutely right. He wins, and at the end of the day, that's what it's about in this sport.
Yeah, that's I think so. Campbell was your answer for that one for the coach that could get the biggest bump. Okay.
Yeah, but Satake, like I said, Satake's right there too, and Dillingham should be. I just don't know if he leaves.
Yeah, Campbell, I feel like he has to be the right answer because for a few of those guys, it would only be select jobs. Or for Campbell, I feel like there's so many different jobs that he could potentially get because his name's out there all the time.
Yeah, all the time. Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely right.
That'll be an interesting one though. I'm gonna quick fire you a few schools.
Go.
I want you to tell me if you think they're gonna. How about this? When next season starts, will they have the same head coach as they do now?
Okay.
Baylor. Will Dave Aranda still be there next year?
Different coach.
Auburn.
Different coach.
Florida State.
Same coach. Buyouts a lot.
Wisconsin.
Same coach. Buyout, but just not as much NIL resources.
Okay. Those were the main ones I wanted to talk about. So that's because they're the ones we're hearing everybody
I think Norvell will get them back to like whether they lost 3-4 games, whatever. Like I think they'll be 7-5, and it'll just be to the point where it's like we're still paying Jimbo. Or not Florida State, I'm sorry. They're still paying who was the last coach there? There might be a push for
Willie Sim.
Thank you.
No, not Willie Taggart. Willie Taggart.
That was rough too. But I still just think they'll be like, that's a lot of money for the buyout. Let's wait another year. Let's see how Dion does after another year, and then maybe we make that happen. The homecoming. I'd love to see that at Florida State. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
And another one, former Florida State coordinator Kenny Dillingham. I don't know if he'd leave for that job. I mean, he's another one alumni.
That'd be a great hire for them too.
It would be. And he coached at Auburn too, another team that we mentioned. And another one, Drinkwitz coach at Auburn. I don't leave Missouri for Auburn. There's a lot at play there. I think a lot of the deep South people would say Auburn has a higher ceiling. I don't know that I agree with that necessarily. I think their ceiling's about the same at both places. You're a team that can make the playoffs at either school.
Yeah, I agree with that. Especially like the new Missouri. The new Missouri seems like their NIL resources are very comparable, if not the exact same. To what an Auburn.
You got Luther Burden was the #1 recruit in America, and you got him there. Last year, you got Williams Waneri, who has since transferred. But multiple years in a 3-year span, you got a top 5 recruit.
Yeah, Bo Perbula, a lot of people wanted him. They got that edge, the pass rusher out of Georgia, I think, came to Missouri too. So that's why we'll see if Drinkwitz even leaves, because he's doing pretty good there overall.
He might not. Yeah. Big 12. What 2 teams will play for the conference title game?
Right now, I'll go with Texas Tech, and I really don't want to say BYU, so that's why I'm trying to find someone else off the top of my head right now. I'll go Utah. Utah still finds a way. Okay. BYU stumbles. Utah wins out. I'll be a little biased at the end here. Tech's going to win the Big 12. Tech's winning.
It's tough not to say Texas Tech and BYU record-wise. I'm going to go Texas Tech and Cincinnati. I got a good feeling with Sorsby and Satterfield.
What's the rest of their schedule look like for Cincinnati?
It is not awful looking at it.
I think it's going to be very tough.
I have it here.
Win at us.
They have Baylor at home, at Utah, Arizona home, BYU home, at TCU. That's not awful.
It's not awful. Yeah. It's tough. There's some tough ones in there, though.
Yeah. But everybody's going to have some tough games.
That's true.
Yeah,
you're right.
The other BYU, I got to look at BYU schedule as I cast them aside.
They're just
Iowa State, Texas. That's tougher.
Look at how they keep squeezing by. Like, to me, I just don't look at them and I go, oh, yeah, they're going to be fine. Like, I think they're going to stumble.
Yeah. But I will say for them, this is Kalani Sitake since 2020. 11 wins, 10 wins, 8 wins, 5 wins, 11 wins, and now they're at 7-0. Like, that's a lot of double-digit win seasons.
That's why, like you said, that's why Washington should be interested if Fish goes.
100%. Yes, I think that would be a good one. We're at mid-season now. I'll ask you a question I've not asked anybody else. Who's going to win the Heisman Trophy?
Oh my goodness! If that ain't the hardest question in the sport right now, I don't feel like I wish Genty was playing this year, because I wanted him to win it last year, and obviously, and Travis was very deserving, right? But like last year's was one of those races they both deserved to win it, and now we're begging for someone to jump ahead and take the lead. Was Mateer, and then he gets hurt. So
I feel like if you're making me guess right now, I'm probably going to say Fernando Mendoza or Ty Simpson.
I'd probably go Mendoza. Julian Sane is in there, but he's probably third or fourth right now. I'll go
any QB on a playoff team is in there. Like I've said this before, last year was the anomaly where we had 2 non-QBs at 1 and 2. You're a quarterback on a team that wins 9 or 10 games. You are in the running by definition, basically, at this point.
Yeah, I'll go Mendoza right now. But even like we said, like just Heisman winning quarterback for Mendoza, like that to me is probably one of the worst winners we've had in a few years. It's a weak race this year so far.
So far. And Dante Moore could, if Oregon goes on a heater, they just have the one loss. He's going to have a shot. And looking at the regional voting, Moore would get the West Coast stuff, which you got to configure, where you're at and so on. Simpson would get the South too, which would be a big
I wish that Jeremiah Smith was having that type of year at Ohio State, but he's been really good. Team's game plan around him. He has not been transcendent. He has like a Heisman, like a receiver has to be to get the Heisman.
You're right. Yeah, you got to be like Devontae Smith was, where you're getting 1-2. You got to get 15 touchdowns on the season probably.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to see a defensive guy win, a true defensive guy, not a hybrid, a true defensive guy win the Heisman one of these years. But it's probably going to be a bit till we get that.
Yeah, I don't think this year there's
no, definitely not this year. I'm just saying one of these years. It'd be fun if someone
Yeah.
had like stats like that.
And up until last week, we would have said Carson Beck was up, a candidate.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And they
4 picks.
Yeah, that was a rough one for them. But yeah, I mean, there's nobody that stands out right now. I think,
No.
like we had mentioned the guys that Mendoza, Simpson, I think they probably are 1-2 at this point.
Probably. And like, I like Simpson, but it just, it's not a Heisman guy. Like his numbers, his play to me, like some of these other years, the guy we've had finishing second or third, like even a couple years ago, right? I think Jaden Daniels won at Penix, was right behind him. Like they were having incredible years. Like, and we'll see, maybe someone will still emerge, but it just hasn't been a great Heisman run so far this year.
Georgia doesn't have anybody. Ole Miss is good, but you've had the 2 QBs. Neither of them have played enough.
You got some good teams this year. You just don't have like a spectacular Heisman-like individual in college football to me. Some years you have
Ahmad Hardy's regressed a little bit the last couple games. Yeah, so it's interesting. But JT Wistrcill, Locked On Utes. I'll show the banner again. And for all of you viewers out there, I'll tag his socials and places you can find his content. How many days a week are you running episodes, JT?
Monday through Friday and in season on Saturdays too. So staying busy during the season like we all are. College football every single day. Gotta love it.
Awesome. That's great to hear. So I'm Mike Huesmann. You people know you can find me here, and then Thursday nights on our group one. And then now I'm doing Locked On Vandy one day a week with Corey, either Tuesday, Wednesday. But JT, was fantastic to have you here. Great to talk about a team who, our viewers, aren't going to be watching as much, but is a successful team. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, Mike. Had an absolute blast.